There's just so much.
Before we had a flag and we had it so it was positioned above the tent so it would be in the camp. He just moved.
What was that?
God, he just got shot! Holy
SuperTube. This Charlie Kirk situation is crazy. If you didn't know, political conservative activist Charlie Kirk was assassinated on a campus in Utah yesterday. Now, this situation has everybody divided because Charlie Kirk, his rhetoric was very polarizing.
If I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified.
When blacks in America did not have the same rights they had today, they were less murderous, there was less break-ins. Why is that? And the data shows they were actually better in the 1940s. It was bad, it was evil, but what happened?
Those are some of the most intellectually dishonest statements I've heard in a very long time.
He was the fucking reasonable guy in the room, you dummy. He wasn't a far-right activist. Are you kidding me? You have any idea what's out there? You think that was like the radical position? Charlie Kirk was the most moderate human being. He was a plumb line Republican. A plumb line Republican, as everybody who knows anything about anything knows, is 1 centimeter to the right of a plumb line Democrat. He was right just in the middle.
There's people that they don't know how to feel. There's some people that explicitly state how they feel. There's people that don't care. And then there's people who find the situation to be an atrocity. One thing we can all agree on is that this is an anomaly. And when it comes to just certain narratives that people been kind of throwing around, like when people talk about America just being so divided and some of the talks about like civil war and stuff. Now, we try to stay away from that. But also, when things like this happen that are so unfortunate and divisive, they polarize people. There are people who, when it comes to just the conservative movement, Charlie Kirk was extremely influential there. His organization, Turning Point USA.
What is next for Turning Point? Who is going to pick up the torch? Who is going to carry?
Charlie, I promise I will never let your legacy die, baby. I won't. I promise I'll make Turning Point USA the biggest thing that this nation has ever seen. I promise.
He was going around America speaking to kids in high school, kids on college campuses. He became a very prominent, influential figure in the conservative movement. In 2023, Turning Point USA was valued at, I think, $83 million. This is before Trump won the election. We could estimate that that company is probably valued over $100 million in 2025. Turning Point USA has a co-founder, and upon doing some research, we came across this guy named Bill Montgomery, who's also the co-founder of Turning Point USA with Charlie Kirk. Now, Bill Montgomery was an older gentleman, and he's not here anymore. Charlie Kirk, he's not here anymore. Now, this means that Turning Point USA has a vacant position. That company was on its way to $100 million. They not just gonna leave that vacant forever. So what Charlie Kirk left behind is something that just leaves this weird void in the conservative movement. And these kinds of things, if you don't know, these kinds of things been happening a lot this year. In April and May, he was very polarized when it came to the Epstein situation. People were banging on the doors for that situation to come out. And Charlie was one of the people that was like, hey, he was putting pressure on the Congress, and he actually received a call from the White House. And he was also in direct communication with the White House at times. So this guy was extremely influential, and he had some power when it came to his voice. When you see him going to universities and campuses and openly having dialogue with the people there, I mean, that's just something that it'll always draw a crowd. And that's what he was able to do. Having a daily podcast, being on radio, also being a political pundit at times. He was definitely building up a brand. And there's reports showing that he paid himself a salary about $30,000 a year. Like he seemed to be somewhat modest in a way. Now, when it comes to the rhetoric and what you say, and when you say things, just keeping in mind, hey, not everybody is going to agree. Certain things that we say, they could be radical, they could be extremist, not everybody is going to agree. Now, one thing that I wonder is, why didn't he have a detail? I think I saw a report saying that there was about 6 police officers or security guards that was on the premises of the campus. That's also kind of weird and also an anomaly within itself. Leading one of the biggest political movements in the country right now, and when you look at what's been going on, it's been a lot of weird anomalies happening in certain sectors. Why wouldn't he have some type of security detail? That clip was extremely wild to see. People are wondering, where did that come from? There are certain foreign governments that people are saying, yo, was it that foreign government? Was it this foreign government? Anytime you mention these foreign governments, and listen, y'all, the world is in a very crazy place right now. When it comes to just what you're communicating and what you're saying, it's almost like, look, if you're going to talk like that, and if you're going to say things like that you know are extreme, you got to definitely make sure you're being careful every step of the way. Now, y'all heard some of the things that Charlie Kirk was saying at the beginning of this. And these are things that people feel very divided over. There are maybe even some black people that may agree with some of the things that Charlie Kirk is saying, but then there's some white people who don't agree with what he's saying. There's some Spanish people that agree with what he's saying, and then there, like, you get what we're saying, y'all. Like, politics is something that's very divisive because then you get ideologies involved. And with the way Charlie Kirk was speaking, we get it. He's just having dialogue in an open way. When you see him on camera, you never really see him get out of body. You never really see him wild out and turn up. You think, okay, yeah, like, he's being socially responsible. But at the same time, social influence, we've seen it throughout time. And when it comes to politics and just socially moving, there are a lot of things that get very controversial. And make no doubt about it, this was a political assassination. And these types of things, this generation hasn't really seen that. We've seen it last year, and we can see, wait, it's been a rise in these things. It's been a rise in these types of occurrences in the country. And you got to think, what does that mean? Like, that's the kind of things that happen in third world countries. Like, when people can't agree on social dialogue, then they start fighting each other and combating each other. That's not what America is about. I mean, from what I understand, America is more so about, if you disagree, you go to law and you push forward. That's why we have certain rights. One of them being the freedom of speech. And we see, yes, you have freedom of speech, but also people still have the right to do whatever they want to do. You get what we're saying here? So it's like, why not just, if you're in a certain vibe, yo, be mindful of what you say. But then we can still see, even when you do that, just certain types of ideologies, the people might not just be with it. And we also don't know what Charlie Kirk had going on behind the scenes. Look, if you know what Charlie Kirk had going on behind the scenes, give me the drop. But also, when it comes to just certain things like that, you don't know what was going on behind the scenes. The 2028 election is coming up. When it comes to what he was doing, it's almost like, look, y'all, he's actually building up and almost like campaigning right now. And that's what made Turning Point USA so crazy, because it's like you're having open dialogue on college campuses where there's a bunch of students. It's an open forum. The clips are going viral online. His online presence was up. He's 31. He understands how to engage his demographic. So when it comes to just the conservative aspect and then the liberal aspect, these are things that are just like, all right, look, y'all, this is some political and it's like, look, with stuff like this, like, yo, look, you seen where this stuff could go. There's some people that say, hey, look, if you're a black person, you should stay out of it. This got nothing to do with you. But then also, when it comes to just social rights and just civility and just being like a human in a country like America, that's also crazy, right? That's also wild, but it's just polarizing, because if you could hear him say something and you're like, yo, I don't agree with that. That sounds ridiculous. Who the fuck does he think he is? What the fuck are you talking about? But then does that mean that he deserves to get unalived? Like, especially on a campus, and like, you can hear the kids that were traumatized. What about the kids that saw that, how that traumatized them. There were children there that were like 12 years old. What about the people there that will never forget what that was like? Even people seeing that thing online. Now, what happened is they allegedly apprehended the shooter. They allegedly caught 3 different people. The first guy was like this old guy, which is also weird to me because he definitely doesn't fit the description. The guy that they ended up catching was 22-year-old. I think his name was like Tyler Robinson or something like that. Who put him up to this? Did somebody put him up to this? When they were talking about the weapon that was used, they were saying that he has some shit on him. They was some marksman. I was listening to a conversation with some marksman talking, and the marksman, they was talking about how far it was away and how you got to control your breathing with stuff like that. And it's just like, that was some expert that he did. And there's also people saying after that, they allegedly apprehended another suspect and it wasn't him. There was like 2 people that they said, yeah, it's this person. And then it's like, wait, that's not him. But one of them definitely don't fit the description. The other one is like, that doesn't fit the description. So it's just like, after a whole day, these kinds of things is very weird, right? And it's also what these types of situations be making no sense. And that's why it's a problem, because it's an anomaly in society, right? And that's why I'm asking y'all, is this what America is about? And I think that y'all would agree that that's a no. America is I would think, more mature place. Even if you saying some wild, crazy I don't agree with a lot that Charlie Kirk said. But also, there's some people that might not agree with a lot of the things you might say. But does that mean that someone deserves to get unalived that way if they don't agree? But then again, this is what I'm saying. We don't know what he was doing behind the scenes, y'all. And then when it comes to certain foreign governments, there's a lot of controversy going on right now with that. Nobody know what the fuck he had going on behind the scenes. The things that he was saying was pissing a lot of people off. Nobody know what the fuck is going on. But like, yo, look, them niggas in Utah be turning up. Every state be turning up. Don't play with them Utah niggas, man. Yeah, Utah is a spot. So on all levels. And right now the atmosphere is a very tense time. I just hope that everybody stays in a positive space, right? I don't want anything like this to happen again. And I hope that people who are like, if they feel traumatized by this situation, I hope, I want to pray for them. And I also just want to pray for that people can get through issues and speak about things in a responsible way. Because violence, force, and aggression, that is never the answer, right? This man, he had a wife, 2 children. Feel me? But at the same time, man, there's people out here that be on some right? And as you see, you don't underestimate Utah. Don't underestimate them is in Pennsylvania. Even when they try to get at Trump, keep it a bean. It's like, yo, why wouldn't you have security? Why wouldn't you just off that? You get what we saying? So y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments, all right? It's a SuperTube. Yeah.